Oh.
So she got $2 for the night, but
Where's the baby? In the house?
That's great.
so okay. In the morning when I left, then I went to the next little town, and they had like a Texaco gas station with the restaurant and all that stuff, you know. So, and I chowed down, pigged out, you know, and got gas and stuff. And then I went on into Bryce Canyon, you know, and I'm checking it out, you know. And I'm there at the ledge, and there are no other cars around, no other vehicles at all. You know, nobody's around or anything, you know. This guy comes walking up out of Bryce Canyon. And I'm like, where's this guy coming from, you know? It was so strange, you know, just to think that, you know, and this was fairly early in the morning, you know, because I take out pretty early. But there was snow on the ground and stuff, and this guy comes walking up out of Bryce Canyon. No vehicle. I don't know where he went. You know, I didn't stick around too much to see. But, anyway, yeah, I guess I just went on, and I guess the weather was nice from then on or something. But.
So then, did you stay with John for a while, or?
Yeah, that would probably be when I got the job at the hospital.
Okay, so then you started working at the hospital. That leads right into the next.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's where I met your mom. I started out as a dishwasher, and then you had to work on the line, you know, which is you dish up the food, you know, and then they just asked me if I wanted to be a cook, and I go, sure, okay, you know.
And this was the LDS hospital?
Yeah, up on the hill, up in the avenues, and so I started cooking there, and yeah, your mom was working there, and we went out.
Well, wait. So you skipped the whole part. So what was it about Mom that made you want to ask her out, or?
Well, I don't know. She's cute.
Cute. Was she being silly or funny, or?
I don't know. She always worked way over there. We were, you know, I'm just seeing.
You just thought she was cute. So what did you say to her when you asked her out?
I have no idea.
No idea. But she said okay, huh? She was okay with it.
Gosh, she must have.
Good. And so, how long did you guys date before you were engaged, or do you know how long you're engaged before you're married? Or?
I don't know.
You got married in April. Do you know when you met her? April of 1973. You don't know when you met her. Do you know when you went up to Salt Lake? Did that give you any hint?
Good example of why you should get a journal.
This is what I'll tell my children. That's good. So, okay, so then were you living somewhere there by the hospital then?
Yeah, I had a 326 D Street. That's where I lived, which was just like 2 blocks from the hospital. So I would just walk to the hospital because I didn't have a car. All I had was a motorcycle for a few years.
And so you had the motorcycle for a few years while you were out in Salt Lake?
Well, a few years I didn't have a car. And then finally I guess I saw an old Volkswagen for sale. Old blue Volkswagen, $150. Oh, this is so funny. $150 car, you know. They ran good, you know.
What year was it?
61.
61 bug?
So yeah, I'm showing it off to Uncle John. So I guess I went over to the university or wherever he worked, picked him up. We were going to lunch. We were driving along, and it runs out of gas. You know, it just quits running. And I'm like, you know, and he didn't have a gas gauge. You know, I'm like, you know, some guy just almost instantly pulled up behind us. He had like a bus or something, and I remember he had wooden bumpers. You know, real nice mahogany or something, you know, real polished up wooden bumpers on this old bus, you know. And he came over and helped us push at the corner. He said, now you know there's a switch up under there that you turn it and it goes onto the reserve tank. I'm like, oh, no, I didn't, but we turned it and started up and we drove on, you know. So that's how we found that out. But the funny thing about this car was it needed a valve job really bad. And so it was real hard to start first thing in the morning, you know. Once it was started in the morning, then it would start the rest of the day with almost no problem, you know. But
you can't get out.
So I'd always have to park on a hill. 326D Street, you're about 7 blocks up in the avenues, and so first thing in the morning I could just hop in, coast down the hill, let the motor spin over, and it'd start up in a little ways, so I didn't have to worry about whether it'd start easy or not. I remember one time it was cold and it wouldn't start, and I'm going down these hills, going down to First Street. I don't know what street it was, but I'm clear down to, I'm about a half block from, what would it be, North Temple. I mean, busy street, if you want to start by then, I'm just stuck, and just about to North Temple, and it started. And I'm like, oh, it's so funny, that old car just wouldn't start. After that, I took it in, had a valve job done, which was $125, which, about the price of the car, But then, man, it ran great. And I remember your mom and I went up to Evanston, Wyoming, Cody and all that, just made a big loop. And it came out to exactly 300 miles. And we didn't have to fill up with gas.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And we got back and it was like 30 miles per gallon, because we filled it up and it just took 10 gallons, which is as much as that tank would hold.
That's scary. So what did you guys do together? What kinds of things did you do to take this trip? Do you remember?
Well, we'd go over to Memory Grove, that park over there. I remember going over there a lot. Just walk. We did a lot of walking around. Memory Grove, just below the Capitol.
Oh, okay.
Is that still there?
It's called something different, I think.
Yeah.
It's a cool place.
Yeah, it's a lot different over
Yeah.
Not cool anymore, huh?
there. Yeah. But, yeah, we did a lot of that. Mainly that's all, because, we never had TV.
Did you have a TV? Did you have a TV growing up?
Well, yeah.
Okay. What would you guys watch?
Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke?
Some doctor show. I remember.
Kildare.
Mom and I used to watch Perry Mason and Lawrence Welk on Saturdays.
Lawrence Welk.
Hey, she loved it.
Oh, no.
But, yeah, Gunsmoke. I remember Hopalong Cassidy
Oh, yeah.
and Paladin, the guy with the chest band.
Howdy Doody on Saturday morning.
Yeah, they did have good cartoons Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
Yeah, not like nowadays. So they were Bugs Bunny and stuff like that.
So what year did you graduate from high school?
68.
68. And
See, and that's another thing, is I went straight from high school to college. I should think that's
So what about a mission? Did you ever think about going on a mission?
I didn't know that you had to ask. I thought they just called you on a mission, and they
Oh,
never,
really?
nobody ever called me.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
Oh,
well, isn't that weird?
that's
I was
tragic.
telling
Surprised
somebody
Mom
else about
didn't
that.
say something.
They called him.
I never even thought about it. Just, called on a mission. Hope they call me on a mission, And nobody ever did. And then I find out that, well, no, you got to fill out these papers and ask to go. It's like, well, I find this out 10 years later. I'm married and have a kid. Thanks,
Oh, that's so sad.
That's interesting.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. But I think when we were growing up, we didn't know a lot of things.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, the temple was a scary place because it was secret. That's, and it wasn't secret. It was sacred things, but they just didn't talk about things like they do now. So I didn't want anything to do with something that I didn't know exactly what was going to happen.
Well,
So that scared me off because it was secret. I didn't know what was going on.
So did you not go to church when you were out at college? Were you kind of
Yeah.
not wanting to go to church and stuff?
Yeah.
So when did you start going again?
When I had kids, when I had we went over to England, and I had James, and I realized that I better shape up for a ship out.
Well,
Isn't
I
that
remember
interesting,
when I guess the folks were sealed in the temple in Salt Lake.
See, I don't remember that at all.
I was in like a nursery or something,
Oh yeah, I remember being in a nursery.
and
Before we had gone.
and they took off and went down some hall. I remember I looked out there, I looked down that hall, and it was dark, and I was like, where did we go? Why are you leaving me here? You know?
Well, what? You were like 5, 4 or
Mhm.
5? Yeah.
So I would have been
I
there
remember
just
the
for
nursery,
the
but
sealing.
that's all I remember.
See, I remember that long hallway, looking out that door and see that long hallway, and that's where they'd gone, you know?
And this is
Like-
when they were sealed in the temple, you said? And which temple were they sealed at?
Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City.
See, but they just took us in probably for the one thing. And
Well, yeah,
back
you go in
in-
the nursery, because I did that with Jennifer when I was with her kids, and then took them out to where she was.
Anyway, that was weird.
Okay, so where did you, so you got married in Salt Lake in April 1973, and then what did you do after that? You got married, and did you stay out in Salt Lake for a little while, and then come out to Wichita?
No, because Dad needed help at the garage.
Green Puget?
So we came back to work. I came back to work for him. Which, see, once again, it was, you know, I thought he really wanted me to, and he didn't really care. And I'd rather have just stayed there, you know, because, but, you know,
You came out. Okay,
it's
well,
communication.
well, to back up a little bit too, Vietnam War, what was going on? You've got that one picture where you're, you know, standing, you've got your back turned, you know, obviously protesting the Vietnam War and everything. You don't know that picture?
You were.
Well, when I was 19.
Wait, no, so how did you get out of Vietnam?
Okay,
Sorry.
when I was
That's a question
19,
for
that's
Mike.
when you were getting drafted, is when you were 19. And a lot of guys, that's why they went to college, just so they wouldn't get drafted, you know, because you
Right.
get a deferment for that. Well, then when I turned 19, they had a draft lottery that year. And so they just drew numbers out of a hat. And everybody's birthday was a certain number, you know. And my number was 276.
Wow.
So, and they went up to like 60 that year, I think, you know, they drafted.
So what did you think about the war?
I didn't necessarily want to go.
Yeah, I didn't want to
No
go.
kidding.
Did you have,
Well,
Feelings on
it was, you know, it's like they're doing in Iraq now, you know. Somebody shoots at you, well, you have to call in and check and make sure, do I shoot a real bullet or do I have to shoot a dum-dum, you know, or something like that, you know. You can't really fight a war like that, you know. If somebody shoots at you, you got to shoot back. That's the whole idea.
so you don't remember protesting the war or anything, no?
No, I remember that.
And so you came out to Wichita, and then I was born out here. And were you guys living on the farm then, when I was born?
No.
No?
No, we had apartments here in town that we lived in.
So you lived in town in an apartment, and then when did you go out to the farm then? When did you guys decide to move out there? No. I just remember, you know, pictures of Mom and swimming in the tank and things. So eventually we moved out there, and then you went back to the house on Meridian, or bought that house.
Yeah, we bought that house. And we bought that house in 73, I think.
Did you live out at the farm?
We remember
the
living on the
trailer?
farm somewhere. I mean,
Well,
we
maybe you
did
did.
when, not with Janet.
Well, I lived in it in 73. So that's when Jennifer was born.
Yeah, see, I don't think
You didn't
we
live
did
out there.
until then. We were divorced, and I got custody of you. Then's when we lived out the farm.
Oh, okay. So you lived in an apartment, and then you bought the house on Meridian.
Uh-huh.
And then what were you guys doing then? Where were you working? Or
Green Puget.
Green Puget. Yeah. So did you work there up until Mom
Yeah.
left? Or? And
Yeah.
so, but she had gotten a job at night. You're saying? Tell that story. Yeah.
Well, just said work at night. And
Where'd she
I'd
work
work
at?
in the day in some restaurant.
So you guys would just kind of switch off, watching me, like when you came home. And she worked at some.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. 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 I don't want to speak ill of the dead, so
Spill
let's
it!
go on.
Oh my word! Go! Spill it! Go.
No, it's like,
So they brought us out to Salt Lake, and then Mom took us back.
yeah, now that's when,
ya.
yeah, I was out there working.
You're back in Salt Lake again.
But that was after, yeah, after I'd worked at, yeah, after the divorce, just, I just packed up and went back out there and got a job. I guess that's when I was working at IHOP. But yeah, she came out there.
Because when we came to visit, I wanted to take her home with me, and we called you guys to see if I could do it, if she could go stay with me for a while. And you guys said yes, so Janet, you must have been together. But then the day we got ready to leave, Betty had talked Mom into not letting me do it because they didn't think I could handle it. Always resented that because they knew me they didn't know what I could handle and couldn't.
Now, see, and I don't know, you know, because I never heard anything about that. See, but maybe Janet did.
Oh, well, I don't know who. I didn't talk to anybody. I think Mom talked to whoever, and they said yes. It would
Well,
be
see,
okay.
all I knew is just they showed up with the kids. And they're like, here's, we got the crib for Adam, and here's
So Mom
all this stuff.
and Dad brought him out to Utah then?
I'm
Yeah, I
like,
remember.
well,
I had my
cool.
third birthday in a
And
hotel room.
that's like
in the
about
demo.
2 days later,
Oh, really?
she was gone. And
So she just came out. She just came to visit. I mean, she wasn't wanting to stay, or you don't know.
I have no idea why she came out. Just,
And so you and Mom first went to court over who would have custody when I was like 5 then, and that's why I stayed with the Headleys. This is the 8.
yeah, because that's when I got custody of you.
And so then, yeah, I was with you for second,
Yeah.
third grade, and then 4th grade we went to court again. And that
Well, 4th grade, your mom got married. Seemed like everything was working out. And I'm like, you know, well, she needs to be with her mom. You know, because
Okay.
she was, you know, for about a year there, she was
Okay.
pretty much straightened out.
But she really wasn't, which is sad because you not believe things. But anyway,
Anyway,
so-
yeah. Well, see, I didn't
So
know
then-
that.
yeah.
And so, you know, I just went to court and I talked with the judge by himself, you know, just like in his chambers or whatever, you know, and said, well, you know, kid really needs to be with her mom, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think it started out okay too. But then, so then they got divorced, and then you came out to get me out there when we were out at Galen's house out in the country. Does that sound right? You came to get me and took me back to Wichita. But it was supposed to just be a visit. You took me back and just planned on keeping me, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember how that worked that I got custody the second time.
Oh,
But I remember
don't think
I
you
was-
ever got custody again. I think you just took me. Isn't that right? Because then when Mom came and got me, took me to Seattle. Really, she still had custody, right? And
I don't
so
know,
she
because
took
I
me-
remember when I was working at Cessna that I had just gotten custody of you, and then they were going to give me this promotion and move me over to experimental, but I'd have to work second shift, and I'm going, I just got my kid back. I'm not working second shift, you know.
Oh, huh.
Yeah.
And what were you doing at Cessna?
Well, I was just working on the line as a squawk worker, but
Squawk?
they were going to move me into experimental, you know, if I do that second shift job. Squawk worker is just, you fix stuff people mess up, or you put in parts that weren't there when the train moved down the line, you know. But it was a boring job. I'd work overtime every day. I'd come in 2 hours early every day, and I'd get 8 hours overtime on Saturday, and I'd work that 2 hours early, and I'd work the 8 hours on Saturday, but 40 hours a week, unless somebody was sick or something, not there, I was supposed to just stay out of sight. Oh man, it was the most boring job. It'd just last forever. You know, I mean, you cannot imagine how long 40 hours is until you've got to just not do anything.
Oh.
Well, no, and it wouldn't just stand there either. It was like, you know, the foreman said, well, you know, just kind of stay out of sight, and if you need need something, you know, we'll call on you, you know, to do it.
Oh gosh.
And so, I mean, I knew every inch of all the oldest warehouses and stuff. Now I could probably tell you where biplane parts were, you know, and pranks, you know. If this other guy and I just cook up the weirdest pranks. I'm one of the funniest ones. There was one of the crew chiefs or something that just thought he was, you know, the top of the line, you know. Well, he worked over in this area over here, and we're on the line here like this. And we found out that if you cut off the eyelet on those wire connectors, you know, it has a little circle like this, and then a little piece of metal that comes down like this, and you crimp this on the wire, and then you put a screw through this to bolt it to the airplane. And if you cut off that eyelet, it would just fit perfectly down into the drinking fountain slot. And so when you turn on the drinking fountain, it just had this super high-powered beam of water just shoot out of that drinking fountain, you know?
Oh my gosh.
So we're in this plane, and as the planes are going down the line, they have brown paper over the windshields, you know, so nobody can see. But these had little vent windows in them, you know, so, you know, you pop open the vent window and look out, you know, and we're just hanging out in this plane, you know, and me and this other guy are squawk workers, and we're just staying out of sight, you know, like the boss says. So we put one of these things in the drinking fountain, you know, and people go get drinks, you know, I just stare them in the face, and they just kind of laugh and point at it, go walking off, and nobody ever does. Well, this guy comes over, he gets a drink of water, he had his safety glasses on, the water goes up, shoots up in his safety glasses, you know, just really sprays him, you know. So he goes and gets the foreman, you know, and it was like my foreman's foreman, you know, like supervisor or something like that, you know. He goes and gets him, you know. Well, after the guy got squirted, we went over there and pulled that thing out of the drinking fountain. So he goes to get the foreman, comes back over there and turns that water on, and it's just coming out like a regular old drink of water. And the foreman's like, you know, turns and walks away, you know. And he's like, you know, this one jerk just couldn't figure out what was going on, you know. Well, so when it cleared off again, went back and stuck it in. That same guy came back, got a drink of water, got him right, just exactly the same thing, all over again. It was so hard. And that time he then looked and pulled that thing out, you know, figure out what it was. But that was so funny, you get that guy twice in a row like that. We had this powder, you know, sometimes we'd have lines of wires that would have to stick through plastic tubing, and so we'd have this white powder that you'd take the bottle and shove it in the end of that tubing and spray this powder in. It's sort of like a talcum powder sort of stuff. And then when you went to slide a wire through it, it'd just slide through real easy, you know. I'd take some of that powder and put it in this guy's drill gun, you know, because they're all air-powered drill guns. And he gets under there and starts to drill a hole. Just powder shoots out, his drill gun just locks up, just lickety-split. He comes over and was talking to us and said, "Man, my drill gun just smoked," and then it just locked up, you know. But it's, you know, that was...
You know who he gets that from?
Who?
Grandpa.
Really?
Yeah, he was ornery.
Was it?
Yeah,
Oh.
how do you tell some stories? He did some ornery things.
Yeah,
Did like who?
The one that was the best was behind the old shop when he was at Mitchell's or something, and they had a guy that rode a motorcycle that lived in the house behind the shop.
Grandpa
you know?
Jerry went to ride a motorcycle?
No,
No.
another guy.
Another guy.
And so there's the old Model T coils. You could set them so that if you had current go to them, you know, that create the spark, you know, like a spark plug spark, you know. So he rigged it up, ran a wire down through the dirt over to that motorcycle and hooked that wire to the motorcycle. So when that guy would come out and try to start his motorcycle, then hit that switch, and it'd give him a shock. Boy, this guy would look around and you know, like he thought his motorcycle was shorting out, you know. He'd give it another kick, then hit that thing, and boy, it just shocked him. And he said, man, they did that for a couple of days, and then one day the guy, you know, was out there starting it up, and it gives him that shock, and he gets off and sort of kicks around and finds that wire, you know. You know, they take off and didn't do that anymore.
Oh my gosh. So how long did you work at Cessna?
2 or 3 years probably.
Why'd you quit?
Well, I don't know. Just for one thing, it was so boring. You know.
And so I was living with you then?
Probably.
Let's see, so it was
Well,
fifth
yeah,
grade?
you must have been.
Well,
Yeah.
fifth grade, but then were you still working there when Mom took me out to Seattle? Probably.
I don't remember. I have timelines I got to get at.
And so when Mom took me out to Seattle, did you know I was out there? Or
I think she
Chris?
just kind of snatched it or
well, yeah, I know she
Tell him to be
sneaked off,
quiet.
but how long until you knew where I was?
Oh, you gotta be more forceful at that point.
And then we just showed up again, and she brought me back to Wichita, and
I don't know how.
yeah, I know we drove back. And,
But isn't that when I got you at Galen's then?
no,
From that after
no,
that?
she brought me into Wichita to her friend's house, and you met us there, and then that was, you know, and then I lived with you from that point on. And yeah, so I think, yeah, and so we were out on the farm until, I think 7th grade you moved into town when you got the
Yeah,
job.
Grandma had always said I should have waited till 8th grade because I never even thought about your 8th grade graduation, which you would have had at Rose Hill, and you didn't have.
Yeah, but that's hard to be away from your dad too. So that's fine. And so, how did you get the job at the Eagle?
Okay.
Well, that was, I was taking some classes at WSU.
Classes for.
I wanted to be a reporter, I think.
Oh.
You know, and one of the requirements was you had to take a photography course. You know, so I'm in my first ever photography course.
Oh, and so this is when you're writing for the Sunflower. then.
Sunflower, yeah. And the teacher put up some poster and, you know, said that the Eagle wanted somebody to work there, and the instructor came out and said, did you see that? Did you apply for it? And I went, no, I didn't see it, you know, because apparently somebody else had seen it and taken it down, you know. And he said, well, yeah, they want somebody to do this, and just take some of your pictures up and show this Russ Corbett and see it. I took him up and he said, yeah, you'll do, let's do it, you know. It was supposed to be part-time, you know, and it was part-time for maybe, 3 months or something, and then the word came down from above that, well, you know, you can't have them work 40 hours a week and call it part-time, you know, so then it was full-time from then on.
So, how much were they paying you when you started?
Oh, I know.
I don't remember. And so it seems like for a little while though, before that we were like throwing newspapers and kind of.
Yeah, I did do that for 2 years. 3 newspapers every day, 365 days a year.
And what time?
No day off.
What time did we go out? I mean, you go out and then I went out with you sometimes.
Gosh, I don't know.
Before the sun
Probably
was up.
Really
6 or
early, though.
something. It seems like I'd get back home about 8 or something.
And did you do anything else then, or just the newspaper?
Well, that's when I was going to school.
And then you go
I
to
was
school.
going to paper to go to school.
And you got the job at Eagle. And then we moved into town. And then how many years did you work at the Eagle then?
19 and a half years.
19 and a half years. Okay, here's one of the questions was,
Rock, don't.
I remember you dated some people and things like that. And how come you didn't remarry sooner? Was there anybody?
Well, the person I really liked was not too enthused about the church.
About the church?
Brenda.
Brenda?
Yeah, Brenda.
Yeah.
Brenda Cargill.
And so did that cause some problems, do you think, then? I mean, you were Like, well, she's not interested in the church, then I better not.
I wasn't going to marry her.
Gotcha.
And she's like, well, why don't you come to my church? And I'm like, well, you know, I don't have the time or the inclination to go to your church, you know.
Yeah, so nobody else really piqued your interest until you met Diane.
Well, I really